yeah.
Yeah,
Meta manipulation if he doesn't, right?
yeah, for sure. All right, the first question from Twitter, I believe, is Green's Reshizard consistent enough to be a tier 1 deck?
I don't think so. I don't think
Okay.
it's that consistent. I like the deck a lot, but
So let's go further than just the consistency.
yeah.
Do you think anything in it gives it potential of tier 1?
Plant Stamp.
Yeah.
Plant Stamp for sure. Plant Stamp is very strong. Volcanion is incredibly good. Flare Starter is like really solid. My friend Joao, and as you know, because he played at a cup this past weekend, played the
Yeah.
like heavy plant, heavy stamp deck version, and then he won his special event, and you got second at the cup.
Yep.
So deck's good.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it.
I cut the fourth stamp for one judge in my list.
Oh yeah,
Um and like the judge, if at any point if I hit judge early versus mute 2, it gives me a better chance versus a good player. So I was really hoping to hit judge versus Rahul at the cup. He was my only loss in Swiss cuz he played the matchup correctly.
yeah. He was telling me about that.
Yeah, it's so bad for Green's Reshi if Mewtwo actually like just holds their Mars Shadow and holds a Stadium.
Mhm.
Next question, also a Greens deck. Can Guardian be the best deck in format?
I don't think so. It's definitely a good deck. It's a very solid deck. But one of the things that I said in like my articles that I wrote about Guardy, and then my article that just came out, um, the deck gets significantly worse the more people respect it.
Yeah.
So if people say, "Oh, Guardian is the best deck in the format," blah blah blah, the deck gets much worse if people know that it's a thing. For example, a few minor differences in a list can make that matchup favorable. You can play more Lysander Labs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that the more people respect it, the worse it gets. And it doing really well at League Cups this past weekend, I don't think does it justice going into this weekend or
Yeah.
Knoxville.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I definitely think people are toying with the idea of a third labs in their Pico ROM decks. I
Mm,
mean, and two labs was already like making the matchup not an auto win for Guardy like it was on paper originally.
yeah.
So like Guardy losing auto wins kind of just makes it not a good deck because the only reason to play it is its auto wins, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a deck that has super polarizing matchups. You can straight up lose to some decks, but if the decks that you have favorable matchups to start teching for you, then you lose your good matchups. So now you're just a deck that has a bunch of
You,
meh
you
matchups.
have
Like,
even to bad
yeah,
matchups.
yeah,
Gassy said if they ever print Fire Charm, it's over. Uh, ML Gaming said is Malamar best deck in format or is it the play?
I don't know if it's the BDIF, but I think it's a really solid play this weekend. Katron's been trying to convince me to play it, and I've asked him quite a bit about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a deck that I personally feel comfortable playing, and it's not like I really dislike those mid games where it's just like recharge a bunch, attack with something else. It feels very awkward to be playing a deck like that.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, if you play against people that don't really know how to play against Malamar or you hit the right matchups, then I think the deck is really solid.
Yeah, I like Katron's like a really good player obviously and he's played a lot of skill intensive decks in the past. And also kind of like wonky decks. So seeing him take it to top 8 I think showed people that like if players like as good as Katron or better decide to pilot the deck, that it can actually make it past day 2.
Yeah, and the player level really matters. A lot of the sequencing with that deck is really difficult. I'd actually go as far as saying it's like probably one of the more difficult decks in format to play, right under Pidgeotto.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, like Pidgeotto, you kind of understand how the deck works, and then from there, you just need to focus on optimizing your plays, make sure you do this and that right, make sure you're resourcing the same stuff. But like with Malamar, if you sequence incorrectly, your whole setup can like go poorly. Um, so I definitely respect the deck. I think it's really good, and I wouldn't be surprised if I end up playing it this weekend. But as of now, I've still just felt kind of meh on it. It's not the deck that I like right now.
Word. Yeah, I definitely think it's going to do well again. I think enough good players will play it, even if it's just a handful.
Yeah, I'd love to see the back-to-back top 8 for Katron. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Gassy asked thoughts on Stinger GX in Blacephalon.
Yeah, so my testing group actually talked about this last night. We read the article and saw that he was playing Stinger in it, and in theory, it seems pretty strong. But my main problem with it was like, how much does it actually help your matchups? So the main thing that my testing group's a lot of Pika players, so we were just kind of like, does this change the Pika matchup at all? If the Pika plays Mew, I believe Blounds is unfavored, just to set the scene a little bit.
Yep.
Blounds is unfavored against Pika, and then if you play the Stinger, I guess the game plan is you Stinger, then KO a tag team, right? Well, so you set yourself to 3, so if they stamp you, go down to 3. You now have a Naganadel GX in the active with 3 energies, and then the rest of your board has to be like Blound with 2 energy, and you have to have a second Blound with 2 energy, because if you don't have a second Blound, now you just
lose.
they just like draw a bunch, catch her up your 1 Blound, knock it out, so now you have no attacker. So you have to have 2 Blounds with 2 energies on them, and then like you have no room for the charging up Nag, because you have the Nag GX that draws you cards off the stamp. So it's like, it seems like there's way too much going on, at least for the Pika matchup. But I could see it being good in like other matchups. It's also nice if they can get an early prize lead. But yeah, I personally haven't tested it, but in theory, it just didn't seem amazing.
On paper, I think it turns birds into like an auto win if you get the Stinger off and then just take 3 prizes.
So like, if that's the case, couldn't they
because you have B strings at that point, so you don't get things trapped.
So couldn't they just go? How much retreat does the Nag GX have?
I believe it's 2.
Classic Will, not knowing what the card does, but I mean, it's not.
We can look. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Let's say.
It's not that relevant. But like, if you're Pidgeotto, you now give yourself 3 prizes. Oh no, that's right. You can't search. Okay. Yeah, I see that. I can see it. If you take a prize, you can now like JJ their hand and then continue.
It's 1 retreat. You're right.
Okay, so like, the main problem with Pidgeotto is the minute they're able to handlock you, their shot at winning the game just increases by so much. So you can't like surge JJ Mars the turn they Stinger because you're both at the same prizes. But if they take a knockout, then you can cold crush JJ, stuff like that. And especially if the Pidgeotto player knows that combo is coming, they can like kind of set their hand up for it.
I think if you're playing the Stinger against I'm not going to say the average Birds player, because I'm not sure there even is an average Birds player, but like one of the people that are picking up Birds this weekend because of how good the matchup spread looks, I think you might be able to take wins against those players, but maybe not like against whatever Birds player makes top 8.
And also against Mewtwo, if they know the Stinger's coming. So like, this is like more of a day 2 sense, because if you're playing a tech, you want to make sure that it's effective no matter what. And I believe Azul, I think I heard this on some podcast, or maybe Isaiah told me, but like Azul set up, he found out that the Blounds opponent was playing Stinger, so he set his board up to just like snipe a bunch, and then the turn that they Stingered, he just cross-divided and won the game.
Was this at AC?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like in theory, if you can just like 170 a bunch of Blacephalons and then they Stinger, then you just cross-divide and win the game. I'm not sure how easy that is to set up, but like, that's another thing to think about if your opponent knows that the Stinger's coming.
Yeah, I mean, versus Blounds, you're already setting up a cross-divide play with Mewtwo. Yeah. Most of the time, and at least in the lists that were popularized from this past weekend, because nobody was playing the Muck that kind of like was just a League Cup thing and then died. But like, I haven't tested Mew in a few weeks, but to my knowledge, the game plan is you Turbo Strike, use Nag GX's Venom Shot, and then cross divide to skip B string turns, or Venom Shot cross divide, like some combination of skipping B string turns.
Yeah. And that matchup might actually be favored anyways. I know when I was playing Mewtwo, I didn't actually get to test the Blacephalon matchup going into AC when I played Mewtwo, but like I kept talking about it with Isaiah and some of the others that were playing Mewtwo, and they always gave me the sense that I was unfavored against Blacephalon. So your matchup might not even be that bad.
No, I
Um,
definitely don't think it is for Blacephalon. Like,
yeah.
if I don't think you should ever tech for Mew with Blacephalon. It's definitely winnable for both sides.
Mhm.
But I test against Blacephalon a lot, and um, one thing I've realized over the past maybe month, or at least like this format, is that like bursting burn actually comes into play in more matchups and more scenarios than you'd think.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
Ian won a regionals with Bursting Burn.
yeah, like bursting burn on the Mew, and if you don't hit the switch, then you're down at extra energy that you were planning to use for your cross divide in 2 turns, or
Yeah.
uh, bursting burn put a hitch in Poiple stall. That was upsetting. Let's see. Is Katron's Mally Beast's idea real, or is he trolling on Hey Fonte?
Oh, it's a joke. I asked Croxon about this. Essentially, the meme is that anytime Katron sends someone a list, the angle of the picture is so bad that it's almost like you can't actually tell what the deck is. So they took their real list and swapped out all the cards they didn't want to show
Right.
and replaced it with like Buzzwole and Fighting Energy just to meme on the fact that the picture is like this.
The Celesteela got me thinking, like, if you were expecting the Guardian is going to be something, like the Guardian matchup is going to be decisive in your performance, you could, like, try to be, spicy and put a Melmetal GX in.
Uh, I know that like uh
I'm not saying you should. I'm saying
yeah.
if you wanted a metal attacker.
Whoa, Katron, your pictures are awful.
Let's see what else we got
Hey,
here.
what's up, Locke?
Yo, Lock.
Yo, Katron, you gonna back to back top 8 this weekend?
Should decks like Pika, let's just say, should the tag team decks consider a Zebstrika line to beat Pidgeotto?
Hmm. Alright, so Pika, and I don't think a lot of people understand this. Pika, when played properly, I think actually can beat Pidgeotto.
It
Like,
can, yeah,
pretty
but
favorably.
so you think
I
it's a
don't
favored
I don't
matchup? Or do you think it's just winnable for both sides?
Yeah, I think it's winnable for both sides. It's hard to say it's favored because anything can go wrong for
Mhm.
either deck. Like Pidgeotto can have just like a slow start and then they can't do anything. If you're playing Judge, I'd say Pidgeotto's favored, and if played correctly, you're playing Judge because you just mess up their whole strategy. And that was something that my group at Worlds figured out was like if we could turn one Judge them, they probably lose. If they draw out of it, you just play defensively and you full voltage and stuff like that. Um, in Reshizard, it could be worth it because you play Ninetales and then you can evolve to Zebstrika. Um, Blounds could play it, but that's not a tag team deck. And then Mew 3, I don't think you need in Mew 3. You can win the game with cross division. One of the common plays that you can set up, and I did this against my winning opponent for day 2 at Atlantic City playing Pidgeotto. You kind of just want to like, you can cross divide them early and just straight out win the game because they can't do anything after that.
Mhm.
And you mainly want to turbo strike energies onto a Latios so that if power plant ever sticks in play, you can retreat and still have an attacker. Because like your goal is take 6 prizes, so there's really nothing special to it. And as long as you can do that, you win the game.
This is another one from Facebook. Which supporter, aside from Volkner, is the preferred choice for Pikarom, and why do you choose this one over the other choices? So I guess we have Cynthia, Lily, Bill, Judge.
Mm.
I maybe an Erica's here and there have been thrown in.
Yeah. I really like what Justin Bokari ended up playing in Atlantic City to a 9th place finish. Was 2 Cynthia, 1 Bills. We were playing 2 Cynthia originally, and then we saw what Pedro was doing. And earlier in the week leading up to Atlantic City, he had mentioned like, "Oh, could a Bills be good?" And we thought about it, and it seemed all right. And then when we saw Pedro playing 3 Bills, we were like, it's probably pretty good. And in theory, you can just like draw 7 into custom catchers or stuff. You don't have to reset the one custom catcher that's into your hand and then draw both off of like Cynthia's Stellar Wish. So playing the 1 bills is nice, and then Cynthia is just a solid card. It allows you to conserve resources that you might find early and don't want to ditch. And I would play 2 Cynthia and 1 bills this weekend.
Word. Another one about Pikarom is what is the preferred stadium choice? Obviously, if any of this is covered in your article, we can refer to the art. We can tell people to refer to the article. That goes for any of the questions.
I'm not gonna like super plug my article, but it does exist if you want to go check it out. And shout out to Card Cavern TCGs for following.
Oh, hey, Card Cavern, thank you for the follow.
So in my article, I essentially take Justin's 9th place list and I cut the Lysander Labs for power plants and then explain a little bit of the card choices, stuff like that. And the main reasoning being Mewtwo just won the 2 events that took place 2 weekends ago, and power plant, when played in high numbers, can really mess with Mewtwo. So I personally prefer Lysander Labs because I do believe that you can win against Mewtwo players that are like okay at piloting their deck. But if you hit a Mewtwo player that is very good at the game and understands their deck inside and out, the matchup I would say is like a solid 40-60 for Pika. It's not good,
right?
For Pika. And as the Mewtwo player, 2 weekends ago, I figured this out. I would hit a Pika and I would just feel really good about it. But like if you're playing triple reset stamp and you're playing power plants, you can catch the Mewtwo's off guard. But like they still have Marshadow resetting hole and stuff like that. And I feel like Lysander Labs pretty much shores up your other matchups. It's really helpful against Malamar and Guardy. Like this is known information at this point. But like Lysander Labs is also really cute against Jirachi decks because you can turn off their board and like stamp them in the same turn, and if you end up playing Absol, like it's just even more detrimental.
Yeah, I think Absol's pretty good. I didn't end up getting to talk about Absol, I don't think, at all the week leading up to AC, but like 2 days before AC, I just decided that Absol was something that was going to be played, so I'm just going to cut escape boards from any list I play for extra switches. So I ended up playing Abilities Art, and I cut second board for 3rd switch or 4th switch or something like that. And then I felt really good about that decision because I think I heard John Eng mention something about his Absol screwing over his opponent round 1 or something. I was like, yeah, good read there.
Justin and I, for Denver last year, actually expected a lot of Absol hype because I think this is at the point where Pika Box had been performing a bunch and Zapdos was increasing in play to counter it. So like Absol was just a good card to have in your deck. So we ended up going from, I think what was like, I could be wrong, but what was 3 switch, 1 rope, 2 board. I can't exactly remember the count, but essentially we just cut one of the boards for another switching out. And then we've kind of stuck with that ever since. In Atlantic City, he played 4 switch, 1 board, stuff like that. Just like increasing your count to counter Absol. Absol can still be really annoying, but you can optimize your list more to not be as prone to it. And another thing with Power Plant, no, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
Another thing with Power Plant is if you open Power Plant in your turn 1 hand and your opponent played down Power Plant, you can no longer Dedenne. So you kind of hinder your own setup by playing Power Plant and Pika. But like, take it as you will. You could also be the person playing Power Plant against your opponent.
Yeah,
like,
I've seen that. I've seen that happen when people were trying out Kaiwen's Pika ROM. From whatever tournament was the one after Worlds, probably Sheffield, when he won. He got either won or did really well with Pika Plants.
Yeah.
I remember that happening. Like my opponent played a plant, and I wanted to Dene, and now I can't. It just looks like it feels really bad. But also on Absol, I think going into this weekend, Malamar is probably the deck it hurts the most because I don't think Malamar can effectively cut down the boards and add switches in their places like Pika can. What do you think about that? Because like with Malamar, you kind of like a good thing about Malamar is that you have this board set up and it doesn't matter if your opponent plants you or stamps you or judges or whatever. You just have this board that is constantly recurring with the Tina, and you can do your same thing every turn.
Yeah.
And that's why you kind of need the board there, because even if you get stamped, you don't have to hit a switch. So I feel like Pika. I kind of really like Absol and Pika right now. If you're worried about the Malamar matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you can go down on boards. Like this is not something I've tested, but
Yeah.
like something that if you were to cut a board, you could start just like recharging to a Mew or something and try and using that as your retreater. Um, but like now Absol is on the field, so that doesn't even work that well. And then I agree with Mr. Jeff Saran in the chat. I think Mally should be playing 3 switch. Katron's list rock the 2 switch, and it's not awful, but like personally, more outs to switching allows you to like use attackers more consistently, stuff like that. It helps get Jirachi into the active. So I think 3 switch going forward is probably the move.
I'm gonna check out Hunter Butler's Malamar list. His list was definitely pretty wild,
Unique.
but I want to see if he what his switch count was.
Yeah.
Let's see. He was 3 switch, 2 board, and an adventure bag. So technically 6 switching outs if you count the adventure bag for board.
Mm-hmm. And what Jolly Flying Man is saying, the Latios for Mally is underrated because it's free retreat. The Latios is definitely really good, and I'd probably be playing that card if I was playing Mally this weekend. One of the biggest issues I have with Latios is against Mewtwo. It kind of puts you on a like very quick clock to use that card effectively.
Yep.
So like if you're going second, you're obviously scared of Cross Divide. So you need to put the Latios in play, get it into the active, attach an energy, and then you need to be able to fill your bench to 4 to even like GX with it. So I do think Latios needs the spot, but it's like just play a plant. Yeah, I mean if you're playing Power Plant, you probably just can beat Mewtwo anyways.
Yeah.
You just like throw the plant down out of nowhere and knock them out. But yeah, I do like the Latios this weekend. It's just like sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle to get it going.
Yeah, I think
So
I like
Guardy too.
I think I like the Latios. Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, so the first turn attacking Clear Vision versus Mewtwo, is when it's really good, and then also versus Guardy's pretty good. I've seen people try Gengar Mimikyu for the Guardy matchup, but to me that's just like a starter that loses you a game.
Yeah.
Like that, it just loses you the game. So
if you start it, it's a big feels bad for sure.
This one's another question from outside of the chat, from social media. Should you expect to see Towards Mewtwo in Knoxville this weekend?
I wasn't thinking it, but then I watched, like, I had a lot of free time today. I literally laddered Pidgeotto for 6 hours, like, completely just no life today, and watched all the podcasts just to see what people were thinking. So, I'm gonna probably reference those a bit, and I don't usually watch a lot of them. But after watching them, it seems like people like it a lot, or at least the guests on the podcasts. So, I could see people playing it, and I did my own testing with it. It was solid. It was really hard to beat Malamar in my opinion, because like if they kill your Nincada the minute it hits the board, and this is really easy with Katron's version with the double Muse and stuff, it's like it kind of makes the Shedinja useless. So now they go down to 5 prizes and they kill a tag team, and now you're at now you're at 5-2, or if they Shedinja again, they go to 3, and then you just need to knock out another tag team like you normally would be. I do think that it's a good deck. I don't know if people are gonna end up taking it though. It felt like there was a lot of moving pieces, and you probably have to put a lot of time into it.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
There's also the appeal that Tord Reklev, the great powerful player he is, played a deck. So as we saw with Ability Reshi, a lot of people picked that deck up. So it's possible that people just picked the deck up because Tord played it, and it's like a solid deck. So
something this kind of phenomenon with really intricate decks piloted by like household name players. I saw it happen last year was it last year or 2 seasons ago? It was the Virginia Regionals that Jimmy won with Guardy. Was that this past season?
Yeah.
Okay. So the IC before that was won by Zoroark Control. And I completely expected no like top player to play Zoroark Control to that regional, and every Zoroark Control in the field would just be like pretty beginnerish players just trying out the new fancy deck, and that's like
Yeah.
exactly what happened. And I could see that happening with Tord's deck. Like they want to play something that's off the wall that Tord Reklev, this mastermind, played, and they don't really care how they do. They just want to play something that looks cool and that they'll have fun with. And I can see people like kind of hopping onto the shit engine Mew in that respect, or if anyone had like this entire week free to just bust out games with Tord Mew, then that could also be the case.
And like I was about to mention this, and then I saw Mr. Saran put in the chat. Same with Azul. Like Azul is also a big name. He has the YouTube following, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see a lot more people picking up Azul's Mewtwo list compared to Bradner's or Masic's or Tord's. And like Azul's Mewtwo list looks a lot easier to play than Tord's does. So I think both decks will probably just get played because people just want to play the deck that people won with. And like Mewtwo, so good.
Which of the lists did you like the best out of we'll say Tord's, Azul's, and then Masic's and Bradner's were fairly similar?
Yeah, I played same 60 with Bradner, so I liked the I liked that list. It's the one I have the most tournament games with, so to say now. Going back, I wish, like, I'm not sure how much the acrobikes actually mattered, because without testing a ton, you don't really know what those card slots, if you change them, like what they could be better for.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you needed the consistency of acrobike in the deck, or if we just wanted it for the deck to flow better. I ended up getting sleep that night instead of testing a bunch, so I just kind of went with it. But I know that Tristan and them kind of got the idea from us, and we got the idea from Keon Amini. So going forward, you can cut the bikes from Bradner's list or play Tristan's list and edit that, because it's essentially going to become the same thing. You can play the Turtonator for Guardy, or you could play Lysander Labs, and I cover all this in my article. And it's like, I definitely prefer the Jirachi Mewtwo. And then I was talking to Azul a little bit after our game and before our game, and we felt that playing Jirachis made your mirror matchup worse.
Yeah, for sure.
But like when I played the mirror, it just felt like whoever was able to get established quicker and then just go knockout double Venom Shot won the game anyways, so it didn't exactly matter.
Okay. Yeah, that's a new take. Everybody, pretty much all I've heard is that if you play Jirachi, you lose the mirror, and obviously it's not going to be as cut and dry as that.
Yeah.
Abyss asked, what should the stadium count be in Mali? 3 Viridian and 1 plant, or something else?
So I've actually, in my testing, I've actually been trying to toy with this quite a bit. And I know that Katron still really likes shrines, and other people are starting to cut them. The way Katron explained it to me is if you hit a good Mewtwo player, your matchup is like 50-50. And personally, I don't like that. I'd rather my Mewtwo matchup be favored. So I've been trying to toy around with the power plant, and really it's just like hard to find the one if you try and go 3 Viridian, 1 power plant, 1 shrine. But then the shrine is also useful to just get 10 on stuff, helps Blounds out a lot because you can go 10, 130, and then spell tag for 40. So in my testing, I've been messing around with 3 Viridian, 1 shrine, 1 plant, but I think it kind of comes down to just choose one. So I'm gonna say shrines because I've seen it perform well, and it's nice. Like it helps math if it sticks in turn for a bunch. Sorry, if it sticks in play for a bunch of turns, you can take off the Denes on the bench and stuff like that. So
yeah, it sounds like, I don't know. If you said it to me before Katron did well with it, I would say it sounds like more of a rogue idea, and maybe it could work. But seeing it, like you said, seeing it perform well, I do like the possibility of it sticking a turn. Like, if your opponent doesn't replace it immediately, that's 3 extra damage counters on the Denes, which sounds pretty good. Big D54321 asks, how do you feel about Big Blounds? So, Blacephalon GX. We were talking about the Stinger tech earlier, but I guess we didn't really talk about the deck as a whole.
yeah.
What do you think about it, Will?
It's one of my top 3 plays in the article. It's my top 3 plays that at the time of me writing the article was Blounds, Greens, and Pika plants. But I feel like Big Blounds is really strong. It performed really well day one, and my friend Michael Bergerac kind of showed the people a new way to play the deck without custom catchers. And it's just like 4 acrobike or acrobike, yeah, 4 acrobike, and just like only gas. You can only play good cards essentially, and it doesn't make custom catcher clog up your hand, stuff like that. And I feel like if people know you're not playing custom catcher, the deck becomes a lot worse. But oh yeah, he didn't post his list.
Nah,
So
but
my edited
I
version
have heard
is,
about
yeah.
him not playing the catchers though.
Yeah, so he didn't play catchers, and then he was the top performing Blacephalon, and there wasn't a whole lot of Feeny hype going into this weekend. So I highly doubt that Feeney's gonna show up this weekend. So I do think it's a good play. My biggest concern with Blounds is, as a Pika player, my bias is that any Pika with Mew is favored against Blounds, and I don't know if I personally like taking like an unfavored matchup to a strong Pika player. But if they don't play Mew, I think it's fine for Blacephalon.
Osella Sun says Blounds has an issue with Stamp.
Oh yeah, big time. And that's like that's how you win with Pika. If you can put Mew on your bench and then force them into knocking out a one prizer on essentially their last turn of the game, they can't win. And in order to capture something else on that last turn that they theoretically get to play, you have to draw into like the combination of Welder 2 energies attach, double custom, and have energy on your board in order to knock out a Dedenne off that stamp to 2. So there's a lot of problems. It's like Stamp definitely hurts the deck.
Yeah.
But the same goes for many other decks.
Mhm.
Like Bergerac list featured 2 copies of Stamp, which I'm not sure if other Blacephalon lists include, but like Stamp is good in general. So you can make these huge comeback turns where you one-shot their active with Mind Blown, and then you stamp them in the same turn, and then the opponent can lose. So
I
do like
can't
Blounds.
I can't speak for the entire someone's PC crew, but I do know a few of them were on Blounds. And I played against Chris DePorco at the League Cup we were at Sunday, and he was playing 2 stamps. His list was he and my mom were both playing Blounds, and he was like 2 cards off of our list. We only play 1 stamp. But yeah, the second stamp really surprised me in that, and I think it's a weird argument, but I almost think that Blounds playing their own stamps almost makes them slightly less susceptible to the opponent's plants, because when the opponent goes down to 4 or 3 prizes, you can stamp and B-string in the same turn and then take your lead.
It's also like how likely is it that if your opponent's playing 2 stamps or 1 stamp that they draw stamp off of you stamping them.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Like if you stamp them into a dead hand or a hand that's like kind of meh and they can't draw a lot, it's possible that you completely play around their stamp. And like I would assume that most lists are probably playing 2 stamps going forward, unless it's like ability Reshi or something, you might see 1. So if they have to burn 1 early, they could go to 1 deck late in the game, and then you stamp them, and then they don't have it anymore. Now you've set up this incredible board state with your B-string turns in an ideal world that allows you to further your game plan, and then they can't stamp you, so they can't do anything. And it's Blounds is a deck where if it gets going, it wins a lot.
Yeah. Abbas has another question. Is it ever better to go second with Guardian for Fairy Song? I'm just going to also throw in, is it ever better to go second in either of the greens decks that have good first turn attacks?
So at the League Cup that we were both at on Sunday, my friend Tran and a few others were like asking, is it ever appropriate to go second outside of the mirror match? Because in the mirror match, I do believe you go second. To try and magical miracle your opponent out of the basically their hand first. But the question was more generalized: can you Fairy Song turn 1 instead? And I some goes to Mr. Network. But essentially, I don't think you really want to go second. Like, so much can go wrong. If you go second, like you could open a dead hand, and going first just gives you that extra turn of being able to find stuff. So I think it's better to go first, but that's just my preference. I think it's probably a preference thing, honestly. I'd prefer to go first because I know that it's going to grant me another turn of being able to play.
Yeah, I think it's definitely risky. As someone who's been playing a lot of Greenzard, I also Greenzar was also I think the first deck I started testing for World, so I've actually had a fair amount of time with it. And I've had people ask, or even thought to myself, is it ever better to go second with this deck? Because Flare Starter's insane going second. Like, there's a lot of games I win just because I lost the coin flip and I had a good first turn setting up a Flare Starter. But the deck's win percentage goes down a lot when you start Reshi. And if you choose to go second starting Reshi, it's like it's so bad. Like, you never want to choose second and then see your only Pokemon as a Reshi. So I think you always choose to go first with Green's Zard because, like, if obviously you're going to start Reshi roughly 30% of the time, and if you're going first starting it, it's a little better than going second starting it and then trying to find the switch and get out. It's a mess.
I actually ended up hitting someone in Atlantic City at, I think I was 4-2. I can't remember correctly. And if this person is watching, Ryan, I believe his name was, shout out to you. But it's very awkward. He wins the coin flip and opts to go second. And, at a record of 4-2, that's not something I'd expect to hear, per se. So I was a little puzzled by this. And I was like, okay, that's odd. And like, we considered our setup, stuff like that. And he flips over Volcanion. And I was like, oh, that makes sense, I guess. And it kind of got to the point where I ended up winning that game. But like, the Flare Starter put a clock on me that, like the deck usually does. So, that was interesting. And then I win game 1. I ask him, would you like to go first or second? He answers second. Opens Volcanion again. And then was able to turn 1 Flare Starter, all that. And then I lose that game because a Shrine ended up sticking in play for way too long. Otherwise, I probably would have won. And we go into game 3. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I get to opt to go first. And if he starts Reshizard, this is going to be really bad for him. So we do our thing. We set up. We'd flip over. He opens Volcanion. And I'm like, okay, that's cute. And unfortunately for him, he ended up just having to like attach Flare Starter. He was not able to get another Pokemon down. But like the reasoning, I see his reasoning to doing it, but like my thought process as his opponent was, if he opts to go second and opens Reshizard, it's over because Reshizard is such a bad starter.
Yeah.
Like, even going first is a bad starter, but if you go second, now you have to get switch Volcanion. You can't find Volcanion outside of like Friend Ball. So yeah.
So if you and your opponent do the flip, they win and they opt to go second, do you assume they're playing a greens deck of some sort or something weird's about to happen?
I will say I was very puzzled.
Okay.
Justin was actually sitting next to me this round, and when he heard my opponent say that, he also looked at me and was like, "What? What?" So we were both a little confused. If my opponent opts to go second and it's not like the first couple rounds, I guess from now on I'm going to assume that it's Green's deck. And I'm not like ragging on my opponent or anything.
Oh no, yeah.
That. I think that
it worked out for him. It seems.
It's a concept that works if it happens. But like, I definitely wouldn't expect to hear that per se.
Yeah, well, that's a cool thing to talk about because in this format, probably for a few formats at least, it's very, very odd to want to go second.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jolly and Ocella are talking about Blounds having a Brock's Grit. I'm not sure why you would run it. Jolly said that Finn mentioned the idea, probably in an article.
Yeah. I guess Jolly can speak to this and clarify if we are missing the point, but I would assume the idea is that you shuffle in more Ultra Beasts to draw through your deck, or it is strictly for getting back energies. Not really sure, but the point is to have more draw with. Okay, yeah. So I was right.
Okay, yeah.
Getting back energy. So like getting back energies before Beast Ring, you'd have to probably get pretty unlucky to discard a whole bunch of beast or energies to the point where it becomes irrelevant for Beast Ring to be played. So I don't think that's super huge. And like, I trust Finn. Finn's a really good player, and I've talked to him before and worked with him, and I understand like the stuff that he says and puts time into usually works out. And I know he puts a lot of time into the things that he talks about in his articles, stuff like that. So if it's in there, it's probably in there for a good reason. But like, the main thing I see it is not for energy, because you want to get energies on your board with the Nagana Dell, but it's more to just give yourself more Ultra Beasts to trade. That's like the main thing I see with it. I don't know how relevant the energies are. Oh boy. All right, so a little bit about this deck that you're showcasing on stream right now. This is the original concept that Bradner and I and Kulos came to the event with. We thought the deck was broken, unbeatable, the best deck that we had ever tested in the format. Kulos was at my house for 4 days, and we grinded games and games and games on this once we figured it out. Isaiah gave us the initial idea, and then we started perfecting the list. And then I'm not sure if Jose ended up having like the same idea. I think Rahul mentioned something to me about this when we arrived in Atlantic City. But essentially, Rahul and Jose were also in the same room that we were testing this deck, and whether they had it or not, I guess Jose really liked it because he played it.
Yeah.
And the reason we got off of it was just crazy inconsistent.
Yeah.
It was drawing straight flames when we were testing it at my house, but when we got to Atlantic City and we thought we were going to win the event with this deck, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it's kind of based off the complexity card gaming list, right?
No, not at all. Like,
oh, it's not.
Bradner literally just was like, "This is a good idea.
Okay.
Let's make busted Mewtwo with Ninetales."
Because a bunch of them played it to Sheffield.
Oh, maybe okay. Maybe it is then. I didn't know they played it there.
Okay, yeah. So I made a YouTube video about this like 3 weeks ago, maybe, and I did some testing after that myself, and I actually had like 2 other groups of friends think it was busted days before AC, like winning the event, like the whole 9. And there's a couple things about this list I don't like personally, but the whole thing is just like, it's like you're mashing 2 decks together and hoping to hit Welder.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I'm playing Mewtwo, I'm probably not playing a 2-2 line of a stage 1 in it. Camera unfocusing. The deck looks great on paper, though. I was actually coming to the deck to ask you a question. What do you think about the EVGX and Flareon? In my opinion, it was never making it into my Abilities Art deck, but I'm pretty sure Kika played it in his list, and Kika's a pretty good player that doesn't usually make too many bad deck building ideas. So, what do you think about Eevee?
Every time I built a Reshizard list before the Reshizard deck that I played this weekend at my 2 cups, it included Eevee Flareon. I really like that set of cards. The argument against it mainly is just like, if you prize 1 piece, it's less effective against Malamar and stuff like that. But I used it mainly for Malamar because, as if you don't know, you try and 9 Temptations up a Malamar, you swing into it for 100 with EVGX, and then you evolve, heal off any damage they may have done to it, and then you 190, they hit into you again, and then you 190 again, or whatever. So essentially, you're trading 2 for 3 prizes, and ignoring spell tag in the process because you're gusting their Malamars, which hurts their setup.
Yeah.
So this past weekend, at the 2 cups I played in, I ended up playing Super Scoop Up. Kenny Britton won a cup with Scoop Ups a while ago, and he convinced our whole testing group to play it at cups this weekend. Bokari ended up winning a cup with it. I went 4-2 the first day, losing to Blounds and Guardy, which is very sad. I lost to the Blounds because I debated for 10 minutes whether or not I should play Feeny in my deck, and I said, no, I'll be fine. I won't open the 1 Reshizard in my deck.
Yeah.
Opened Reshizard and lost, essentially. And then the Guardy, I played against Christian Franco, who eventually won the cup. I prized 2 Welders, couldn't get anything going, and eventually he was able to just knock out my stuff, and I had no response. So
Christian Franco's a god. What can you do?
The next day, I changed up my list a little bit. Played 2 Stamps. Played Feeny. I went 402 in Swiss. I hit a Malamar. Playing custom catchers, and the super scoop ups helped a lot. But I feel like if you don't flip heads, they're very useless, obviously. So the Eevee Flareon is probably better in that sense if you're trying to beat Malamar. And then I made it to top 8 where I hit Luke Smith, the eventual winner of the League Cup, as we are both aware of.
Yeah, he took us both down.
I got 2-0'd in under 5 minutes. It was like, I guess you could say I got a taste of my own medicine, because turn 1 judge into like 3 Fire Hearth, a draw, Stellar Wish into Communication Pass. I lost. Game 2, I open an unplayable hand attached to my Vulpix and say, go ahead, you have the win. And he was able to get it both games. So not a great weekend, so to say, but I think going forward, I'd probably like the Flareon. And one of the things that our testing group realized the most with Jose's list, or at least our concept at the time, was the Flareon GX was so good. Just like vanilla 190 was solid because it kind of mimicked Heatran in doing 130 for 3, but now you do 190 for 3, and with Mewtwo, you just have a big Pokemon that can do a solid amount of damage to take out the Denes or whatever. And then the GX attack is really good. If you don't end up using Reshizard's GX attack, or in the late game you run out of energy and only have 1, you can kind of just come out of nowhere and essentially Victini your opponent for 1 energy. And it helps a lot with prizing and stuff, because sometimes Victini becomes useless if you prize too many energy, but the Flareon can kind of assist you if you prize stuff.
Hey, Kalizid, thanks so much for the 3 months.
Busted
Welcome
stream.
back. Busted stream. Yeah, any other questions from the chat? Or we can just keep talking about Mewtwo Ability Zard, which is a deck neither of us want to play, but we'll talk about it for 30 minutes.
No chance. Wow, so sad. All right, so Katron, I have a very good explanation for you, and I guess you could say this is the same reason as why you can't add to 10.
Oh.
So essentially, when you play in Top Cut and you make a misplay, your brain just shuts off, or it shut off before. It could be stream, which is not an excuse you can use because you weren't streamed, but essentially, you make a misplay and you're just awful for the rest of the year. So, yeah, my brain is poo, as you could say. Someone clip it, post it on Hell or whatever. But yeah. Oh, sorry, my bad. I don't know what I'm talking about. Katron never misplayed. It wasn't streamed, therefore no one knows about it.
No one knows about it. Intentional inting.
Mr. Ion Cannon 845, also known as a Pidgey player, who I'm probably not going to name because last time I leaked he got mad at me about his name. Pidgey doesn't suck, but it also does suck because it hurts to play. And yeah.
Oh, Celasun says, should I play Pidgey this weekend? I think
right. This is a long one, I guess, but
I was just gonna, in case you're gonna say the same thing, who on Chip's discussion, did you watch that one?
I did.
Okay, they talked about why or why not you should play Pidgey, and I forget who it was, but one of them like hit it on the head. Like, if you're prepared to play it and you enjoy the good matchups it gives, you should play it. And if you're not confident, you just definitely shouldn't touch it.
There we go.
So why should you play it?
All right, so let's start with why you shouldn't before we get into why you should.
Okay.
And I think it was Rahul who said this. They hit it right on top of the head in Chip's discussion. Essentially, the deck is, it's just like, it takes a lot of thought process, and I think that at least for me personally, it's taken quite a bit of time to learn the deck in and out. What's up, Komasar? So it just takes time to learn. It takes time to develop like the perfect strategies and learns the ins and outs of the deck. You need to be able to play the deck at a super high level. And essentially, it boils down to why you shouldn't play it is it's just a difficult deck to play, and its playstyle doesn't work for everyone. You can make, and I think Xander said this on Chip's discussion, you can make a misplay 5 turns before.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say you don't put a custom catcher into your deck. So now you have 1 custom catcher in your deck, 2 in your discard, and it comes to the point where your only win condition is lock their bench for a turn, or sorry, bring something up, lock it there, and then hope they don't draw out of it. Well, if you don't have that custom catcher that you were supposed to put back 5 turns ago that would now be in your hand, you now lose the game because your opponent just announced his attack and wins. It's stuff like that. Like, it's just a difficult deck to play. And then Xander also mentioned that it's kind of just like playing solitaire, how older decks or older control concepts are reactive. If your opponent, attaches an energy and benches the wrong Pokemon, your initial response is remove the energy, catcher the bench thingy, and like just start running them out of energy. This deck is more of a, you wait until their hand is able to get completely wiped, and then you just start spamming Ice Axe and reshuffling the good cards that are in your discard into your deck, and you continue this loop over and over and over again. So that's why you shouldn't play it. It's just like a difficult deck to play, and it's a hard deck. The pros to playing it, if people aren't prepared for it, or don't know how to play against it, which I will tell you there will be people like that. The deck is very good against those people, and it's very good against particular decks. Um,
Ian
deck is
says
bad
it's
because you prize double custom catcher on the win. And all right, well, listen here, buddy. Play 4 custom catcher next time.
guaranteed to
If you have an
happen.
issue with prizing, play more of the count cards. The amount of time people play or were like, I prized my chip ice axes and now I lose. Just play 3 chip ice axes.
Or don't complain about prizing them. Like
I mean, it's fair
you
to
go in
it's
taking
yeah,
the risk, right?
it's fair to prize them because there's no Gladian in this format.
Yeah.
So like I understand why people say that, but like chip ice axe is such a good Katron will is I don't know what Katron English is not
Oh,
registering.
inting? It's
Yeah.
a league term. It
Oh,
means
okay.
you're throwing.
Throwing Knoxville. All right. Well, I'm not gonna disagree with him because when I play this deck, I'm just kind of like, do I really want to do this to myself, or am I gonna sit against a Pika that knows how to play the matchup and now I'm gonna lose?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I don't disagree with Katron if I were to play this deck, but hopefully if I do end up playing this deck, which it looks like I will be, I do well.
Let's see. We had a question about Beheem, but it's talking about a next set card from Avis. Can Beheem be good after Cosmic Eclipse? I'm going to take that question and just change it a little for Knoxville, Avis. I'd ask Will what he thinks of Mike Foucher's Beheem deck that actually top 8'd this, or top 4'd the same cup that Will and I have been referencing all video. That I did not want to play against. It looked pretty scary.
I like it. Fouché is a good friend of mine, and I trust like his opinions on decks and stuff. The main issue I have with the deck is what do I think about Joe? The main issue I have with the deck is what Fouché was explaining to me is essentially you take poor matchups, like almost auto loss, to Malamar and Agquag, which normally that's fine. But the deck doesn't take like a better than 50-50 or slightly favored / unfavored to Reshizard, Pika, and Mewtwo. That's like the killing point for me personally. I don't like that you have an unfavorable Malamar and then you're not even technically favored completely against the top 3, so to say. That's why I don't like it. But I think that if you're going to play Behemoth and you like that deck, then Fouché is probably the best list out there. And for your next question, which is there any way to see the list? It is on his Twitter. Let me pull up his Twitter.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it and just put it on the screen.
Yeah, his Twitter is at his name, so at MikeFouchet.
Okay, yeah, I'll just type it in the chat then. I didn't realize it was just his name.
What's the play for seniors for Knoxville? What decks do you expect, Chuckles? It's been a few years since I've been in seniors, so I kind of stopped paying attention to it. But I could help if you have an expectation. Prizing double Palpad is sad. Don't play double Palpad. Just prize your 1.
Jolly asked what we think about the Mark Lutz deck. I almost lost to it. It was like basically just playing against any other greens deck, and we were seeing who stamped each other better. It was kind of a mess, but the GG end on my only set up Pokemon in game 2 won him the game, so that was kind of scary.
Yeah. I don't know. I looked at his list because obviously when a unique concept does well, you look at it, and I was very, very confused to understand what was going on. So I'm not gonna lie, I have not tested it or anything. I just saw the guy top 8 with it. So.
Yeah, I was just talking to Anthony before this stream about it. Actually, he was asking me advice. I was like, I'll look at the list, but my advice is very limited because I didn't know what the hell was happening for an hour when we played our match.
Yeah.
Chuckles, the one with he had the seniors question, asked Reshi Mewtwo. Oh, he said Reshi, Mewtwo, and Pika is going to be his meta or their meta.
Literally no
one prize decks.
Okay, so
Blound sounds good for that.
Yeah, if you don't expect Feeny, Blounds. If you don't expect counters to Guardy. So basically, it's like if you don't expect counters. But I do know that when I was in seniors and TRV555 is calling me out on this in the chat for being a senior at heart. People in seniors, for some reason, decided to tech out their decks unbelievably, like, beyond what they actually need. Oh, what's up, Travis? So, like, it's possible that you just run into a field of techs, but I would say play whatever you're most comfortable with. If you don't expect Feeney, play Blounds, because it can beat all three of those decks pretty handily. And then Guardy is also good if you don't expect counters to that. Seniors is like a meta where you can thrive it with counter decks. Like Greninja, when I was in seniors, was usually pretty good.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been 10 years since I was in seniors, but I feel like seniors has a lot of the top seniors are playing like article decks or decks very close to article decks, because they know they're good and they've been practicing, so they're just going to play a deck that's proven to be consistent, right?
Yeah. And a lot of the time, the top seniors that you like see in top 16 and stuff usually play decks that are handed to them by masters.
Yeah.
So,
except in Bradner's case last year, I think he was handing the decks to the masters.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, for sure. Then Stefan was like, "Here you go."
Checkmate. What's the absolute play? Comey asks.
Okay, first of all, I don't even know if I want to answer this question, considering you use Bill's analysis and not Will's analysis.
That was a typo.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying it was. Yeah, it should have definitely been Will's analysis.
Yeah. What's the absolute play? I'm not gonna lie to you. My top tech is Pidgey, which I have it right here. I'm scared to play this deck, I'm not gonna lie, but it is what I've been putting the most time into this week. And if I were to put a play that I think is overall just a solid pick, I actually think this might be the weekend for Pika. Not gonna lie. People are probably going to be focused on countering Mewtwo, which, since it won both events, which allows the other decks in the top 8 to shine, so to say. So I do think that Pika has a really good shot this weekend, especially if you have a solid list. And as you can see by Ben Branch and Ryan Antonucci, they're able to take a deck list that was posted in an article, ask me some questions about it or not, and then just pilot it to top 8. So going forward, if Mewtwo is the one that receives all the countering, Pika kind of just flies under the radar. Pika, when played properly, has a good Birds matchup, so you kind of shore up that matchup if you're scared about it. If you play Mew and play it correctly, your Blacephalon matchup is solid. If you play Triple Labs, your Guardy matchup is good. Mewtwo is the only one I'm concerned about. A good Mewtwo player, that's difficult. But I guess the theory is if Mewtwo's getting countered by other decks, you don't need to counter it. And then with Triple Stamp, you beat Reshi. So
there was one question we skipped, and I can't find it now, but it was a pretty good one that I would also like to hear the answer to. Then we'll probably wrap it up because we've been going at this for like an hour now. But someone asked, let me know who it was. How does a Pika player play against Mewtwo? Like, is there any way you go into that matchup, or do you just hope they whiff Welder? Like, is there anything past like variants?
Yeah. There's definitely a way to play it. I think you should be attacking with Raichu, and it also depends on the variant you hit. If you hit Jirachi, I think it becomes a lot worse because they now play, going off Bradner's list, they play 3 switch and 2 escape board, and you can retreat under a skateboard if you're paralyzed. So I think that the Jirachi matchup's a lot worse, but let's just say we're going against Azul's Mewtwo, which plays 2 copies of switch. Your game plan should essentially just be set up, tandem shock, stamp. If they whiff the switch, you knock them out, and then like stamp them again or something. And you essentially just hope that they stumble the one turn you tandem shock. You could play double Hoopa. Hoopa's incredibly efficient against that matchup. So you can like try and knock out the. So you could like Hoopa or full blitz. They tag purge. So there's 150 on their active, and then you go Hoopa, knock them out, stamp them in the same turn. Then bring up the next one. You go tandem shock, stamp, and then try and GX them the next turn. I'd say that's probably the best shot you have.
Cool.
No problem, Chuckles. Probably go with Guardy Abilities Art and Baby Blounds. I've already played it, so it's time to switch it up. One of the people that I currently have in seniors, assuming this isn't them, played Baby Blondes at a cup this weekend, and then an age up that I know this past weekend also played Baby Blondes, and I don't know if that deck's very good, but
Stamp.
yeah, Stamp's pretty good.
Poor Morgan.
A Bass, 3 Stamps and Guardy, of course. Yeah, Stamp is a really good card, and you don't want to like prize 2 of them and not be able to stamp or discard one early. So yeah, definitely a fan of 3 Stamps.
Bird's Mirror is an auto tie.
I don't know about that. If you play, so like in Swiss maybe, I'm not gonna test that matchup. That sounds awful. But if, oh no, I see Ian answered this. If you have Giraffe, you can not run them out of energy in time to take 6 prizes. Yeah. In cut, you probably win if you play Giraffe Faba. I don't know if you have enough time in Swiss. I think Grant said you don't. So.
I said we were going to cut it off, but we got a couple more coming in. Could Keldeo work again?
As in Quagnag or Keldeo Bronzong?
Well, Telly day 2 in seniors with Keldeo Bronzong. So I'm going to assume that's what he's talking about. I think one of the biggest problems for it was abilities art after Worlds.
Yeah, mainly the Turtonator. I'm assuming because you get rid of the Bronzong that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't like messed around with Keldeo or anything.
Yeah, I haven't tried it since Worlds.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's another control deck, so it comes down to the matchups you hit and how you play the deck. Yeah, Keldeo still has to work again.
I think Telly's saying it does work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Calzit asked, is it a bad idea to increase the Raichu count? I don't think you ever need more than 1 Raichu in Pika ROM, right?
Oh no. Don't play 2 Raichu.
And Pachirisu. I don't think Pachirisu is a good card.
Who asked that? Calzit, the logic is, obviously if you prize the Raichu, you're in like a problem. But if you need it in the particular matchup, but you shouldn't need it that often. The main matchup it's good for is like Mewtwo, Guardy, Green Dreshy. And then against Ability Zard with the triple stamps, you try and tag bolt, so you don't need it there. And the main thing with it is like it's a space that allows for more room in the rest of the deck. That's how I view it. If you're someone that's scared of prizing the Raichu, then I'd play 2. But personally, I'm not very scared of it, and I know that Pika is such a strong deck that you can just overeat power your opponent. You might not even need the Raichu. So that's kind of my logic with it as to why I would play 1.
Cool. Hey, thanks for the follows, guys. We're gonna wrap up the Q&A here.
Squibster123.
Squibster, ask Will what deck I should play if I'm trying to be as flawed as him.
Well, considering Isaac Molosky is laddering Pidgeotto tonight, I think you should play not Pidgeotto.
Okay, last one, Travis. What matchups do you use 2 Pika, and which matchups do you do 1 Pika, 1 Choo-Choo? Last question.
Good question to end off on. Against Ability Zard, you should go for 2 Pika. You essentially try and full blitz into a 1 prizer, and then you they knock that out. You full blitz into the Reshi, put all the energies on the active, and stamp them in the same turn. And then you go tag bolt, knock out the Reshi, knock out the Dene on bench. So that's how you beat Reshi. It's good against Malamar. Katron's version played the 2 Mews, and at our cups, I was able to beat Katron the 2 times I played him. But you basically just try and remove the Mew, and then you try and make a play where you can tag bolt 2 things safely. Like, you don't want it to get knocked out. So you try and knock out 2 things and just stamp them in the same turn to completely mess up their setup. So it's good against that. Guardian Greens use Raichu for the most part. Mewtwo, you want to use Raichu. Pika Mirror, you want to tag bolt. That's a weird one. Pika Mirror, it kind of comes down to how the board develops.
And if Pika's playing Mew.
Yeah. With Chuckles, are you Charlie Jones? If so, let's get it.
Yeah, shout out, man. Alright, we're really wrapping it up this time. Thanks, Will, for coming on the channel. And if you're watching this not live on YouTube, thanks for coming through to watch the VOD. Will, if you have any shout outs you want to give for the live viewers and the future viewers.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming out, the 21 of you currently watching and supporting Luke's channel. You can check out all the articles I write on Team Rocket's Hideout. I think I've put 4 articles up there as of now. I'm sponsored by Queen City Gaming. Shout out to them for helping out this season and hopefully going forward. Shout out to my teammates. Shout out to Jared, stuff like that. And yeah, thanks for all being here. And come say hi to me in Knoxville. I'll be there.
Word. Good luck, Will.
Thank you,
And
Delulu.
yeah, if you were watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching. And subscribe if you enjoy the content.